Hey Katie, I don't know if that's you. Can you get do you see the invite? Share broadcast. Hey everybody, I'm trying to get somebody in that we're just interviewing, but things are messing up there. Uh, Katie, are you on? Hmm. I invited her. Hey Katie, do you see the invite there? Hey Kate, how's it going? I was being interviewed by Katie, another Katie, and I don't know where she is. Don't know where she is. Facebook Live sometimes is not the best. Thank you everybody that's watching. I'm trying to get this interview going, but oh, there she is. Hold on. I think we're all right. Let's see here.
All right, here I am. I made it.
There you go. So yeah, I don't know what the issue was or what's going on, but
Me either.
let's
I
just
call them technology demons.
there you go. Dang iPhone. Well, we can continue here if you like, and
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. And I apologize about the technology demons, but you were sharing with us your story, a little bit about your background.
yeah,
You were sharing with us about your humble beginnings and then also your successes, which I could not hear too well. But if you wouldn't mind, if you would share that with us once again. So let's kind of recap a little bit here. So you have humble beginnings. You're like the person that, the guy next door, the person that you make everybody feel confident that they can make it, right? However, there is a certain level of success that you've achieved, and that's what you were going to get into. What is that level of success? What is it that you've achieved yourself?
absolutely appreciate it. I mean, first of all, I achieved, meeting the love of my life, my beautiful wife Jasmine. That's the achievement in
Achievement.
itself. Of course, as you mentioned, about to be the father of my very first son, so that's also an accomplishment. But due to accolades, I graduated with a bachelor's in civil engineering at the University of Central Florida. I became a published author. Actually, I'm about to publish my fifth book, about to have 10 by the end of the year.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, I love writing. I write all the time. I spoke on stage with the great Les Brown, plus men like Grant Cardone and Pat Bet David. Also, great mentors of mine. Been to plenty of workshops with Jack Canfield and T. Harv Eker. So, some really cool things. I drive a Lexus IS 250. I live in beautiful Baldwin Park in Orlando, Florida. I live in my beautiful townhouse. I mean, just a lot of good things that happen to me, and being a project manager for places like Disney and Universal Studio as some of the things that I've accomplished in my life.
All right. Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Yeah, almost nothing. That is so amazing. And, we were having a conversation yesterday that you make it seem, you give the illusion that this is very easy to achieve. And one of the things that I've seen in your trajectory in this year is that you have gone live every day for the last 264 days. Is it been 260 something days?
200 and almost 60, but yeah, about 50, 55, about there, yeah.
Amazing. And what I call that, right, is self leadership. And one of the things that I see now is that obviously I've had the opportunity to work with many great leaders. Um, and you get to see the background, you get to see behind the scenes, and you get to see so many great things about them. And one of the things that you get to see is that they have to have a level of discipline. They have to have a level of commitment and integrity to self before they can serve others. And I think that you really speak to that. Just in doing that, going live so many days, being able to have 5 books out, being able to speak on stages with many great people, there's a self leadership that you need to have. And I know that now in October, you're going to be launching your fifth book, which is it your fifth book?
Yeah, fifth book,
Yep.
yes.
So it's Success 101. And I think that's so powerful because it talks about just the basic or the fundamental things that you need to be able to lead yourself. So can you talk a little bit about that? Why did you come up with that? Why not talk about something else? But why did you feel like that was so necessary to speak about?
Uh, Excellent and great questions. I just want to go back to something you said in the beginning. I'm going to quote something that Jim Rohn said. Success is not easy. It's simple. The
Mm,
principles are simple, but it's not easy. Why I say it's not easy? Because self-mastery will probably be the hardest thing anyone will ever do,
mm,
to master oneself. You're always going to be at odds with yourself. I think Ram Dass called the karma bhagita. It's an Eastern term that says the internal battle, and that we're always in an internal battle, fighting against our higher selves and our lower selves. So the battle is not easy, but the principles are simple, and that's what I wanted to relay in Success 101 are the simple fundamental principles on how to create success in your life. That it does not have to be complicated, but to master the principles, Jim Rohn also said, it's simple to do, which means it's simple not to do.
mm,
So when something is simple, it's like, let's say we want to work out. It's simple. You would say, okay, eat right, go exercise, and
right.
drink water. You can Google how to lose weight, how to get your exact physique, but it's difficult to get yourself to actually do it.
Mm,
And what I want to bring with Success 101 is simple fundamentals that you can practice. So it's not just me giving you a speech or propaganda and fluffing everything up and say, yeah, you can do it, never quit, never give up, and just give you the rah rah, but actual fundamental skills that if you practice, you will start to see massive change in your life because the same things I put in the book are the exact same things that I practice daily, daily. And the very first chapter is Mindset 101. If
mm,
you can't get the mind right, nothing else will work. So the very first thing, so my self-leadership comes from me being able to control my thoughts, which is not easy. And trust me, I'm not an expert. Sometimes I fluctuate in my own life. But if you can master your thought habits, everything else just goes with it. So the very first thing is to master the thought habits. Even if you look at Christianity, and I noticed this, it's something I discovered, is when they do the cross, the first thing they say is the Father. They point at the forehead,
mm,
which is a very esoteric meaning that the mind is the king of all of this. So if you want to get your life right, you have to get your mind right. If you want to get everything else going, so it's first the mind, then the body, then your habits. But you can't control your habits until you control the mind. So that's one of the very first things that I bring up in the book. And I think that anyone can do it, especially at this time when we feel that it's tough, especially the 2020. All these things are happening and people are dying and you feel very negative. But so that's even a more important reason to master your thoughts. Jim Rohn, again, my mentor, says, Rich, for every day, stand guard at the doorway of your mind.
mm.
Stand guard at the doorway of your mind because that is the key entrance to everything else to happen in your reality.
Oh, that's so true, and it's so powerful. It's so simple, right? But it's the simple things that are the most difficult. So, when we're talking about leading ourselves and leading our minds, right? And so it's always going to be, I would say, something that we're always chasing after. What would you say is something next that you need to possess after you're like, okay, I got my mind right. I got my feet on the ground after I got out my bed. What is the next thing that I need to do to lead myself? Because I think that's the most important thing about this conversation about self leadership. What would you say is the next important thing for us once we have our minds on right?
Well, great question. First they say is the mind, which is your thoughts, and then the body, which they point at yourself, which to me comes from your habits, which Tony Robbins would call your rituals. Your daily habits are what produces the success. So once you get your mind correct, it's what you do with those thoughts that actually start making things to manifest. So our
Mm.
daily habits starts, it's the second important thing. Because if you get your mind right, that's great. But if you don't do anything and you're not doing it consistently, see, that's when you ask me, Rich, how do you commit yourself to 365 videos? Why? Is because if I know if I do something consistently over and over and over and over again, I start to become a master at it. And then it
Mm.
starts to become second nature, which we call the default mind, or what we call the subconscious mind. When
Conscious,
something
right?
becomes when something becomes subconscious, you do it on a default. So you don't have to get yourself up. So perfect example. If you got yourself up at 5 a.m. every morning for 90 days straight, at the 91st day, you don't have to talk yourself into it.
Mm.
5 o'clock rolls around, you automatically get up
Yeah.
because you've produced a subconscious habit that won't let you not do it. So
Yes.
the thing about consistency is what I wanted to show people is if you do something over and over and over again, it will become a part of you. And once it
Right.
becomes a part of you, you don't have to get motivated to do it.
Right.
You're automatically do it. And so I
Mm.
want to shift people just from getting motivated to actual habits. Because once it becomes a habit, you don't have to listen to the last, Eric Thomas in the morning just to get yourself at 5. You'll automatically get up at 5 because it became a habit and becomes a part of
That is so powerful. Like just those two things are so powerful. You know, the mind and the habits. And it's true, right? So I wake up at 4 in the morning and people
you.
think that I'm crazy. And they're like, how do you wake up at 4 in the morning? Because I passed the 90-day period. And now if it's Saturday or it's Sunday, I might wake up around 6, but my body is like, I don't have an alarm clock because
Same.
I just wake up, and it's become a habit. And obviously, I've read in a book that when you have like a carrot with your habit, it helps to ingrain the habit even more. So that is so, so powerful if we
Absolutely.
can move from the right mindset to the right habits and have a habitual way of living, then we get to ingrain ourselves and be leaders in that way. What would you say is something that will corrupt a leader?
Ooh, such a great question. And I'm going to steal something from Dr. Miles Monroe,
Mm,
the late, great Dr. Miles Monroe, who said,
yes.
if you want to know somebody, expose them to three things: it's power, money, and sex.
Mm,
Those are three things that will corrupt any leader. It'll corrupt any person, but it'll
wow.
corrupt any leader. And what he wanted to emphasize was power does not corrupt, money does not corrupt, sex does not corrupt. It just reveals corruption. So you
Mm,
had it in your heart. Man, it was something in the good book. It was something in the good book. They said that, I forgot, these men did something, but they already had the intention to do it. It's just the
mm,
opportunity showed themselves.
mm,
The opportunity showed themselves. So once the opportunity was there, it was already inside them. They just expressed it. So what sex, power, and money will do, it will expose what's already inside you. So the very first thing a leader must do is have integrity,
mm,
be wholeness in who they are, be authentic in who they are. If they say, hey, this is the type of person I am, work on that so you remain
right.
that type of person. So, like, I'll give you a perfect example. I told you in the beginning I was a kleptomaniac. I mean, if it wasn't bolted to the ground, it was going in my pocket. This is what it was. I was very bad at it. And
Mm,
it became a habit. I just couldn't help but steal. And it wasn't until I got this affirmation, that just very simple affirmation: I don't steal. That was
mm,
my affirmation. I don't steal. I don't steal. I don't steal. And what happens is the universe will test you on your authenticity.
yeah.
Always. It will always test you on authenticity. And so I remember when I found this money on the floor. I was leaving Publix. This was years ago before I really got into the journey. But I was making the shift. And I found this wallet envelope of money on the floor. And I said, okay. And I needed the money. At the time, I couldn't pay my rent. I needed the money. So it was a test. And I remember I pulled out the money. It was like hundreds of bills in there. but there was a receipt with a person's name on it.
Hmm.
And I said, if that receipt wasn't there, if that receipt wasn't there, this money probably be mine. But I said, I don't steal. And that affirmation just started coming back into my mind. I don't steal. So I went to the SunTrust Bank. I handed it to the people. I said, hey, I think this woman dropped her money. And I remember a few days later, an old lady calls me. She had to be like 67 years old and say, excuse me, sir, are you the person that found my money? And I say, oh, yes. And she's like, oh, thank God. That was what I needed for rent.
Wow.
And I felt this energy, like I can't even explain the energy I felt afterward. I felt so good about me, that I had integrity, regardless of what I needed, and I was living in lack, like, oh, I need the money, I need the money. I said, regardless of what I need, I'm going to do the right thing. And that just started really me on the path where I think the universe said, okay, now I can trust you with power. Now I can trust you with money. Now I can trust you with exposure to sex because you showed integrity. And so I think the biggest thing for any leader to do is, and it's not for the outside. You know, they say judge a man for what he does when nobody's watching.
Yep.
So your integrity starts from the inside, from when nobody's watching. So nobody has to be around and say, okay, is he going to steal? Is he not going to steal? I control myself and say, so that's something I don't do. And I always do the right thing after that. So I think integrity is the #1 key to save any leader, any person from themselves, let's say.
Yeah, and you know, we see in the media nowadays, I think this is a time for the right leaders to rise, because we see all types of leaders that are just doing some things they shouldn't be doing. And like you said, love, power, and sex, they will really expose what everybody already has inside of them. And there's something that you said that I am such a big believer in, and I've practiced in my own life, and it's affirmations. And this is something that is so basic that
Simple.
people do not have down packed. Because in something so basic as an affirmation, like you were saying, you basically rewired yourself from who you were into who you wanted to be, although you hadn't achieved it, you know. But in your psyche, you were already that person, and that happened to me as well. So one of the things about myself is that I signed up to go into the mission field, and I was getting ready to be shipped out. So that meant that college went into the back burner, and it didn't happen. I fell in love like a dummy, you know, at a very young age, at 17 years old. And then I stayed around. So what happens is that I don't do college, but then, you know, I want to be an HR director. So in my mind, when I sat in the front as a receptionist, I was like, I am an HR director, right? I just placed myself in spaces and in conversations, and I just repeated that over and over and over and over until it happened without the degree. You know, so I am such a firm believer that if you're able to rewire yourself with something as simple as an affirmation, what you're able to achieve in life, it's unimaginable, because you're just gonna, and we're not even gonna talk about like the energy that you put out into the world, you know, when that happens. But I think it's these things that are so basic that if people would practice them, you know, they would get a little bit further in life, because like you said, we already know how to do everything, you know. And that's why I love this book, that as I was reading the, you know, what it's going to cover or whatnot, I'm like, this is genius. This is phenomenal. We don't need anything that is so like not spectacular, but so extraordinary, something that's like out there from Mars. We just need the basic, the fundamental stuff, and you know, we'll be on our way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's simple, but it just has to be practiced. And one thing you said about affirmations people don't do, I want to give a slight correction on that. And just what my thinking is people use affirmations all the time, but they do it unconsciously. And so let's think about just what people basically say. I am tired. That's an affirmation. I'm broke. That's an affirmation. Things never work. There's no good men in the world. That's an affirmation. The country's going down in a handbag. Like, that's an affirmation. And people are repeating these things constantly around the water coolers, and this country's terrible, or the president's bad. All those things are affirmations. They're just
Mm,
unconscious. So
mm,
what you and I do is, if we're doing affirmations, we're just doing it consciously, and we're
mm,
only affirming the things that we want, and not affirming the things that we don't want. And that's the biggest difference. I've used affirmations my whole life. I just didn't realize I was using them until
mm,
somebody said, "Watch the way you speak." There's
mm.
a book called from Dr. Masioto called oh my gosh, I have this book. Sorry, can you give me 1 second? I just want to make sure
Yeah,
it's
of course, of course. He's like, I gotta tell you guys about this book.
okay, where are you? Where are you? Where are you? Ah, can't find it. I can't find it. Okay. I don't know where it is. I got too many books, but it's about water and
About water.
water. And what the guy did was he used affirmations on this water. Okay.
Wow.
And the positive affirmations, they put this water into a microscope, and the water started to crystallize.
Mm.
And it started to make shapes as in snowflakes. Now, the negative affirmation, so he had two different sets of water and had the students say two different types of affirmation. The negative affirmation, the water actually got muddy and dark. And you have to remember, we're 70% water. So when I read this book, it blew my mind, because we're 70% water. So imagine the words that you're saying to yourself on a consistent basis. What is it doing? Not just to your psyche, but to your body.
Mm.
And people get sick from using all these types of affirmations. So affirmations for me is just being conscious of every word I speak. And when I'm conscious about every word I speak, I tend to, once I start going negative, I'm like, okay, that doesn't sound like me. Then I can start shifting it to more of a positive, and then I start to feel better. Regardless, whatever situation it is, if I can say, all things work out for me. Just that simple affirmation is one of my key ones that I learned from a guru named Abraham Hicks. And she says, just say this, everything always works out for me. And so
Mm.
whenever something like negative happens, I keep saying, everything works out for me. Everything works out for me. Everything
Mm.
works out for me. And many times that negative I thought was a negative situation actually ends up being a positive one.
Mm.
But instead of me getting down in the dumps and getting negative and maybe doing negative acts, I start to build myself up to positive, which regardless of the situation, I'm like, you know what? Everything ever works out for me. So regardless of what happens, I keep positive, and that keeps me on a trajectory to get the things that I do want in life versus the things I don't.
Hmm. That is so powerful, and that's so true. And I have a true story, and I need to find the pictures. But I found the book that you're talking about from Dr. Masaru. It's called Secret of Water.
Secret of Water, yes.
Yeah,
Secret of
Secret of
Water.
Water. That is
Great book.
powerful. I need to read that book. I have a story similar to that. No lie. I need to get the pictures. But we had trusted someone to water our grass before we left on vacation. And when we came back, I promised the grass was brown. The person did not water the grass.
Wow.
And my partner was like, what do I do? Because we had just got this investment property, and we, put in the new grass, and that was the assignment of the person that we hired. And I said, you know what? I was so upset. I said, go to the grass and go speak to the grass. And the grass, I am so serious. I said, go talk to the grass and order that grass to turn green. No lie. The grass turned green. People will not believe me, but I was like, tell the grass to turn green. And we were gone for like 2 weeks or so. So that thing was like,
Oh
it wasn't
yeah, that's
like yellow, like brown, like dead, like gone. And I was
wow.
just like, I know that there's power in how we speak. And now that you're mentioning this about the secret of water, which I'm going to read that book from Dr. Masaru, it's true. It's true, and it's powerful.
Our words are. They said words turns into flesh, and
Mm,
because I don't want to get too deep. I don't know how what level your audience is,
right.
but your words is vibrational, and we live
Mm,
in a vibrational world. So just think about that concept. Your words are vibration. You can feel it. Put your hands on your neck. It's vibrational. And you live in a vibrational world. So your world, your words will become flesh, especially the more habitually you'll use them.
So to wrap this conversation up, I feel like we've been speaking like 10 minutes, but it's been
Probably not.
like 45 minutes already.
Wow.
Except for the technical pieces, that's like 10 minutes off. So like, let's say 30 minutes.
There
But
you go.
you mentioned a couple of your role models, like Jim Rohn. Who else would you say when it comes to leadership, those are your role models?
Man, I have a lot of role models,
A
but
lot.
I would probably say two of my biggest role models would be my father and Napoleon Hill.
Mm.
I will say why I say Napoleon Hill is I don't think people understand the level of dedication it took to do what he has done. When he met Andrew Carnegie, he was about 17, 18 years old. And Andrew said, I want to commission you to write a book. I'm going to introduce you to all these high industry people, all these people that have the same mindset that they're coming to that place of high leadership. And I want you to interview them. Now, this commission will probably take you 40 to 50 years of unpaid work.
Wow.
Listen, imagine somebody came, Katie, I want to commission you for a project that you're going to have to work for 40 to 50 years unpaid before you
And I'm
start to see.
17 years old.
And you're 17 years old.
I don't
Most
know.
people say, listen, Mr. Carnegie, I know you're rich and famous and all that, but you got me twisted. But he said, yes, Mr. Carnegie, I'll definitely do it. And he had a rocky road. He had a very rocky road to get there. He had some successes, they failed. Some successes, they failed. Some successes, they failed. Until he had a dream one night that says, the only reason you're failing is because you haven't completed your mission, your purpose. And your purpose was to write this book. And of course, after he wrote it, that's when everything kind of blew up for him. But for somebody to dedicate their life for 30 to 40 to 50 years of just going and getting beaten up by life until you finally make it, just so future generations could read your book and you can tons of people to become millionaires. That type of dedication, that type of faith, to me, it inspires me. It inspires me. So that's why he's my role model, because sometimes in life you're not going to get it in the first 4 months. You're not going to get it in the first 5 years. Sometimes you're not going to get it in the first 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
But if you keep on the mission and you don't lose the purpose and you don't lose the faith, I feel like that's when the universe says, okay, you know what? I could trust this person. This person has dedicated themselves without any fruits. Let's bless them with some fruits. And so that's the reason why. And my father is my other biggest role model, because I seen him do the same thing.
Wow.
Where he studied in Haiti to become a doctor, but once he moved to the States, they didn't accept his license. And so he actually had to go back to, not medical school, but he had to go back for retraining, retake his certification test. It took him 3 times, failed 3 times, so he finally passed it. Had to move to Puerto Rico for 2 years just to get his residency. For years, when he was about 50 years old, when he opened his first medical clinic.
Wow.
And now he's employed and everything like that. So, but to see his trajectory, and we studied from we suffered from bankruptcies. I mean, repos. I was there when the repo man came. And there's nothing when you're 9, 10 years old and you hear that knock on the door of the repo man. And I've seen it all. I've seen my mother go to college, fail, and him try to support both of them, drive an hour for work and an hour back, and then make sure that we did our homework when he got home. I mean, he's kind of like my hero, because regardless of how tough it was, he always kept his integrity and he always kept focused on the goal. And those types of stories and those type of men, I want to emulate, because I think it takes a character to dedicate yourself to something. And I think one of the reasons why divorce is such a big thing, especially in this country, is because we don't have enough men, and I'll say even women, that are willing to really dedicate themselves to something. And I think a marriage, and I'm not dissing anyone that has divorced, because sometimes you got to get divorced. Sometimes you're just not a right match for each other.
Yes.
You're really not. But sometimes sometimes it's like, you know what? Let's try it one more time, and have that attitude. Like, you know what? Let's not end it right away. Let's try it one more time. Let's keep going. Let's keep pushing and see where this goes. And I think that level of dedication is few and far between nowadays.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Like the dedication is something that um we seldom hear so much about, right? We hear about the fast lane, the quick lane, the a millionaire tomorrow, like, you know, like pay $1 and learn English while you're sleeping, like all this fast stuff. It's like, guys, that it's not
Uh-huh.
gonna work out. This microwave mentality. So to hear Napoleon Hill's story, to hear your dad's story, you know, those are people that I think we need to emulate more and hear more about. Those are the stories that we need to hear. So in life, when we do have our detours and when things do take 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years, we don't feel like we're failures, but we feel like we're on the right track. That's just part of the ingredient to success. You know, it's part of the recipe, the
Yeah.
dedication that we need to have in doing what we need to do. So those are amazing role models you have there. That truly is amazing role models. And thank you so much. I think this conversation was for me. Everything that you're saying, I'm like, I think this conversation is for me. So we are going to close out, but I wanted to know if you have any final closing words. And before you give us some closing words, Rich, I do want to highlight for the people that were not on with us earlier on that you have a book that's coming out in October. It is your fifth book. Congratulations. You said that you're going to have 10 books by the end of the year.
Well, the books are already written. It's just
Okay.
I have to just publish them and market them for them to come out. But I already have the other 4 books already completed.
Amazing. That is
Yeah.
amazing. So in October 2020,
Yeah.
you're going to have a virtual launch, a book launch that you're going to let us know about. You're going to share with us in
Yes.
September, though. September, right?
September 27th at 6 o'clock.
Okay, September 27th at 6 o'clock. You will let us know at some point how we can connect, how we can support you, how we can get that book that is Success 101 that has personal and also wealth or financial tools on there, which I'm very excited to read it, to devour it, to see really the basics and the fundamentals that we need to be able to be a leader, you know, to have that self leadership. So we are
Absolutely.
looking forward to it, and I will be sharing it with my audience as well. So, any final words for those people that that are a leader or that are aspiring to be leaders, like right now in this time in history?
Oof. Well, I'll give a simple one. I'll give a real, real simple one. Readers are leaders.
Mm,
Readers are leaders. So if you want to be a leader, I keep going to Jim because he's just one of my favorites. And
yeah.
he said, hey, a man came to him once and said, I want to be a great leader. And he said, okay, the very first thing we do is go check his library. He said,
Mm,
why check his library? Because what a person reads pours massive ingredients into this thought factory we call a brain.
mm,
And whatever it goes into the thought factory will show itself into the person's reality. And
mm,
so that's why he says the very first thing is check a person's library. If they don't have a library, it's gonna be tough for them to be. They better have a library card, because either way, they should be engulfed in books or audiobooks or at least sessions like this. Because the more you can absorb into your mind,
mm,
I always say I take my leaders' thoughts until they become my own. The one thing I listen to is speeches constantly. I always listen to speeches. I re-listen to speeches. Why? Because repetition is the father of learning.
I'm
And the
sorry,
more
that's
I
my
hear,
daughter. She's crying in the background.
oh,
I don't know if you can hear my dog barking, but that's her. Sorry.
but
Sorry.
just repetition is the father of learning. And the
Mm,
more you hear over and over and over again, it starts to replace your thoughts. And
mm,
so now, when I reach a certain situation where it's tough or it's difficult, like quotes from Les pops into my mind, or quotes from Eric Thomas pops in my mind, or Miles Monroe pops into my mind, and they just say something to me that's just like, yeah, you're right. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep moving. Let's keep pursuing. And so I think once you handle this again, like we talked in the beginning. Once this is good, everything else starts flowing. So I would say to be a good leader, you have to be a reader, you have to be a learner, you have to be a scholar, and constantly reading, constantly learning, constantly absorbing good information that will help you get to the next level. And honestly, the whole book of Success 101, as you mentioned, that'll be in October, it stems from what I've learned in great workshops. I mean, from the T. Harv Eker MMI workshop, I mean, great financial literature, The Richest Man in Babylon, great Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I mean, I took Robert Kiyosaki courses, and they start teaching fundamental stuff where I'm like, I'm 30 years old, and I'm like, I didn't know any of this stuff, especially on the financing part. But once I started implementing these basic fundamentals, I was like, oh, wow, I got money in the bank. And it gets and starts building self-esteem. And now you're like, okay, now I know how to budget. I know how to manage my money. Now I can fully be in charge of money. I feel like we all want to be entrepreneurs and we all want to make good money. But if you don't know how to manage the money,
just manage your money.
It's like a lotto winner. You know, a lotto winner could get $1 million tomorrow, and then 2 years later, it's broke again. And so, to be a good entrepreneur, I think you have to manage your finances, and you have to know the basics of how to do so. And that's everything I just teach in the book, and practices that you can implement, anyone can implement, very simple, that if you just practice these principles, I promise 2-3 years later, you'll be like, oh, I got some money in the bank. I got some influences. I've built some relationships. And it's just a quantum leap difference from just doing the basics. Just doing the basics.
So basic. Leaders are readers. So
readers
basic.
are leaders. Yeah.
And
I
that's
try to make it
powerful.
complicated for anyway.
That is so powerful. So I'm gonna take a screenshot because I do have a following in Instagram that didn't make it over here. So I'm gonna take a little screenshot here. There you go. Let me take another one. So I want to thank you so much for your time. Sorry for the technology demon. We need to do this again. You're like libraries and libraries and libraries of knowledge, and it shows up in your life. So thank you so much for leading with so much integrity. Thank you so much for being that voice. And I know that you already stand in greatness, but there's more greatness out there for you. So let's make this happen. Congratulations once again for your baby and your beautiful wife. I look forward to being there in person to see all three of you. And we'll do it again.
Yes, anytime. The next time you're in Orlando, please hit me up. And just want to show your audience and my audience one last thing, that I am a person that when I speak, I only speak what I live. So just want to show you, like,
the book.
I really have a library.
Oh,
and
that's
it's
right.
something that I try to always read, and I have an audio list as well. And it's just one of those things where just the more knowledge you have, and this is my quote: the more you know, the more you grow.
The more you know, the more you grow. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rich.
Thank you, Katie. Have a blessed night.
Right, take care. Bye-bye.